What is going on, guys? In today's video, I will show you the best artillery ballista mercenary build in Path of Exile 2 0.3 update. This build revolves around combining ballista totems, which act like mobile mortar cannons, and then with the banners, which provide a mix of offense and defense utility. It also is designed around the dual curse setup by running temporal chains and the elemental weaknesses. So you're not just actually deleting them from afar, you're also crippling enemies and making them more vulnerable at the same time. And at its core, this setup is a true totem build. You set up your artillery, and then let it do the heavy lifting while you position, dodge, and manage your banners. For defenses, we are picking the Mercenary path and the Tactician Ascendancy, which gives us plenty tools. Then armor and evasion is your backbone, but the real defense advantage will come from the fact that your totems do all the dirty work. You drop them, reposition yourself, and enemies often are pinned down or shredded before they ever get close to you. It's a build that feels tanky, but not because you face tank, but because you dictate the pace of combat. And then on the other hand, for the offensive side, the synergy here is insane. The mortar cannon totems will maintain nearly 100% uptime, especially when paired with a pinning, so you can keep enemies locked down. They're surprisingly durable if you place them correctly, and with the dual curse setup and the extra buffs like the frost bomb, you're getting the highest damage numbers of any traditional crossbow build. The way that we get these insane DPS numbers is because we are going with the Scepter as one of our weapon sets, which makes elemental scaling and curse efficiency stronger than ever. And remember, if you want to track this build, look up the best items, the skill trees, and path of building, then check my link in the description. And before we continue, thanks to U4GM. They are a pro website that provides POE2 services like cheap currency, then even to trade all types of quality items and gems, and much more. They have also more than 20,000 positive comments on Trustpilot, and this website is really worth a try. So make sure to use my discount code KATE for extra 6% off. So let's take a look at our skill gems. At the center, of course, is the mortar cannon, which is basically your ballista totem artillery. The idea here is simple. Once you drop it, it turns the battlefield into a constant barrage of explosions. The supports we link it to it are all about turning those grenades into bigger, faster, and more reliable bursts. But it doesn't stop here. Sustain and the uptime are just as important, and that's where the R package comes in. The purity of fire and vitality don't look just flashy on paper, but they give you exactly what this kind of setup needs, which is safety against elemental hits and steady stacks of health recovery. Add in the clarity-based effects like the warm-blooded and the herbalism, and suddenly you've got a build that can stand its ground through the longer fights. Then we go to the banners, and this is where the whole build takes on its unique identity. Instead of being a passive side mechanic, the banners are actually active part of our build. The Dread banner will chip away at enemy accuracy, making your evasion and positioning more effective. Then War Banner cranks up our offensive intensity by giving you a burst of momentum when you need to melt priority targets. And Defiance banners will tie everything together by stacking on armor and evasion, so you can always feel like you're fighting from a fortified ground. Then next we have the Wind Dancer, which is your mobility tool, and with the right supports it doubles as a soft crowd controller setup by pinning and blinding enemies while you reposition. And finally, Mirage Archer is like having an autonomous soldier in the background, constantly shooting enemies with explosives, even when you're busy activating the totems and the banners. And one important mechanic to keep in mind, we are running the Gem Enthusiastic Keystone. This means you need at least 10 red and green support gems in your setup to unlock its scaling. If you miss this requirement, then you will lose a massive chunk of the build's potential, so make sure every socket counts, even if it's just filling gaps with the offhand skills or auto attack links. Next up, let's take a look at our passive tree. Early on, we invest into the nodes like the Remorseless, Fearful Perilous, and Devastation. These will give you the raw firepower and the early scaling that you need to get your ballistas online, without feeling weak in the leveling process. From there, the tree branches outwards into the Carved Earth and the Overwhelm, both of which will add consistency and penetration, so that your artillery ballista actually punches through defenses instead of scattering harmlessly. And then as the build matures, nodes like the Colossal Weapon and the Volatile Grenades will come into play. These are huge damage multipliers for your totems, which make sure that our explosive volleys will one-shot enemies into the endgame mapping. Pair this with the Authority and the Crossing Judgment, and you gain tools to handle high-resistant bosses and even rare monsters that would otherwise slow us down. Then on top of it, the defenses are also not ignored, so you will take the Feel No Pain, Fortified Location, Hardened Wood, and In the Thick of It. These synergize beautifully with the Mercenary's armor and evasion focus by giving you a defensive backbone that feels sturdy without needing to invest into a pure tank build. Then for quality of life, nodes like the bannerman and the momentum are essential, which will supercharge your banner's mechanics and letting them flow naturally into the artillery gameplay. And finally, for the clear speed, you can't overlook repeating explosives, grenadier and artillery strike, which will push our screen coverage to massive amounts of levels. Moving on to the Ascendancy, the Mercenary with the Tactician is the perfect match for this build. First up we have Suppressing Fire, which softens enemies before they even reach your totems, which will ensure damage output stays consistent, while also layering on defenses. Then second, you take right where we want them, which enhances your ability to pin enemies down and leverage your mortar totems in a safe and controlled environment. Then third, a solid plan rounds out your sustain, and adds flexibility for both mapping and bossing fights. It's the kind of node that doesn't just feel good on paper, it actually feels great in the gameplay. And finally, whoever pays best will add a cherry on top, giving you versatile offensive bonuses that adapt well to the scaling into the pinnacle boss fights. This 4-point Ascendancy pad not only supercharges your totems but also elevates your defensive playstyle by creating the smooth and rewarding gameplay. Then next for the Atlas tree, this build thrives in the dense and loot heavy environments, so we lean heavily into the mechanics that maximize the monster count and guarantee their value. In the center of our tree, we want to grab the notables for the essences, chunk boxes, harvest and delirium. Essence will ensure a constant stream of crafting materials. Then harvest gives us deterministic upgrades, and chunk boxes paired with delirium creates a crazy levels of monster density that this build clears with ease. On the right side, expanding into the Legion and Expedition will add even more monsters and the loot explosions, which synergizes perfectly with the artillery playstyle. And then at the top, investing into the bossing nodes will ensure that Maven, Conqueror, Shaper and the Elder encounters are always worth your time. The key is clustering around the synergies instead of spreading too thin. For example, the Essence plus the chunk boxes guarantee consistent profits, Harvest lets you craft deterministically, while Delirium simply boosts the raw density in your maps. Next, let's move into the gear, because this is where your artillery build really comes alive. Your first weapon set is about utility and sustain. Something like the Life Spring or any wand with a fast cast speed will work, but ultimately you want to run a Shrine Scepter. You want to look for increased spirit, ideally plus 55, plus a solid chunk of intelligence, 30 or more, to enable that high level Frost Bomb. Then you want to craft the perfect Essence of Command, because our magnitudes scale beautifully with the banners, which makes them much stronger. Then Purity of Fire should be leveled as high as you can get it, and get its quality to 20% for the extra fire resistance. And then our second weapon set is where the real damage happens. A siege crossbow with the highest physical roll is possible is your dream. Best in slot would be +1 to ballista skills or increased grenade damage, paired with the attack speed and additional levels to attack skills. This is the slot that you eventually want to invest into the most into. For armor, look for hybrid bases with both armor and evasion. Zealot gauntlets, death mail or the dastard armor and the fortress sabotons all will fit this build. You want to prioritize life, resistances and physical damage to attacks, and always quality these pieces up to squeeze out the extra defenses. Then for accessories, follow a simple logic, constricting command for better banner uptime, a breach ring or the gold ring with the added physical or elemental damage, intelligence, life and resistances. Then the OG's damning is mandatory for the extra curse slot. And finally for the belt, you should get a utility or rawhide belt with armor, strength, life and resistances. And now finally, let's see how to actually play this build. The rotation is straightforward once you get used to it, so start by dropping the mortar cannon totems. Once they're firing, you can cast the Frost Bomb, which automatically swaps to your weapon set 1. Then place your banners, War Banner, Defiance Banner and the Dread Banner, which will establish your fortified zone. From there, cast the Mana Tempest if your mana drops too low, and then repeat the mortar placement. As soon as they're fired, they're volleys. In normal mapping, it's even easier, just keep dropping mortars 24/7, while your banners and the curses maintain control of the battlefield. The totems will handle the killing, so you can handle the positioning. And then for pinnacle bosses, make sure to swap Short Fuse 1 for Short Fuse 2, which will keep the curses active and maintain the Frost Bomb uptime. Overall, the synergy between the curses, banners and your artillery totems will melt even the toughest enemies in split seconds.